What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex. In this video, I want to talk about Clair Obscur Expedition 33. I have finally finished the game, and instead of doing a review, I'll probably do that tomorrow. I want to jump straight into the ending, want to jump straight into the spoilers and give you guys this spoiler cast here because, man, this story hits you like a ton of bricks. And before I get too far into the video, I do just want to shout out the developers for giving me a review code for this game. I greatly appreciate it. And I'll tell you this right now. I mean, this is a almost life-altering game. You know, when I know a game has done something to me, it's when I can't stop thinking about it. I had a very similar feeling with Rebirth, with Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, where I beat it, and I just wanted to look up every single post, every single theory, every single interpretation from all of humankind, right? Just want to see what everybody's talking about, and I didn't stop thinking about that game until like a month later, and that's a very similar situation with me right now. I beat the game less than 24 hours ago, and I can't stop thinking about it. So I want to hear from you guys as well, because I'm also going to be talking about, you know, some of these themes and these interpretations of how people see the endings. Definitely want to hear from you guys of what you picked and what you think of this game overall. So let's tackle some of the biggest things in the game. I mean, obviously one of them is the opening. Now that's not even too much of a spoiler because, you know, it happens an hour, and I've said before, I mean, I just think that opening is going to stick with people for a long time. One of the better openings, and just unbelievable really how they suck you in. I remember saying, I think in a video right when I first played it, how quickly they get you engrossed in this world is unreal. You know, how fast that you can just say, okay, I get all the characters, I get what's going on. Simple enough premise, at least right away, right, to kind of get you in, and then off to the races we are. And, you know, obviously the Gustav thing is probably number 2 in terms of the big moments, and I was stunned. I was really, you know, I remember seeing trailers, and I remember seeing Verso, and, you know, I didn't know many characters' names, and even to this day, even right now, right, pronunciation of some of these characters' names are pretty tough, but, you know, I remember seeing Verso, and then you wouldn't see, I think, Gustav, you know, in the party, and I never put it together. I always assumed he was on the reserve team, which, you know, when you actually play the game, there is a reserve team, you know, so it's like, okay, as the game goes, logically, you think, well, I could just put him on the B team, and he'll save me when the time comes, and then he just gets freaking destroyed, and that hurt, and I really, you know, I want to give them major props because they try so many different things, and I think really like really just going on this line of like this morally ambiguous kind of ground right towards the very end of like you can really, again, I think interpret it very differently than somebody else, but just having that risk of like taking out that character a third of the way in. I mean, he's your main character. He's literally the one that you are moving around with, and, you know, when you're actually traversing, much like Verso is really after that moment, you know, on, he's the one in the first third, and to take him out is nuts. I mean, obviously there's a lot of storytelling that the game has to do in that last 66% of it, but, you know, to take out what would be considered the main character so early, I mean, yes, it has happened. Like, it's not the very first time, but it's a major risk, I think, to do something like that, and they absolutely nailed it. Now, I'm going to jump around a little bit. I want to kind of tackle the ending because I think the ending will kind of expand into kind of everything else that was going on, right? The themes and all that stuff. I mean, like, fighting the Paintress is freaking legendary, and some of these almost like larger than life scenes. Well, I'll tell you this, okay? Actually, right before the ending, how about when you think you've won, you take out the Paintress, right? Everybody goes home, you're back in Lumiere, and all of a sudden everybody freaking dies. I can't even express to you, would have needed a camera, you know, on my face. I didn't cry, but the stun, like just my jaw hitting the floor, would be visible, you know, to a camera watching me. I couldn't believe it. It had a feeling like I knew something was up, right? Because there were still unanswered questions of like, okay, well, who's the girl in the mask? And you really start to, I think, put things together, and you'll start to figure stuff out, especially if you're exploring, which, to be honest with you, I tried, but I just never really found all that many, you know, expeditions, you know, previous expeditions. So I think I missed a little bit of the context that I looked up after the game, right? But if you're just going through, something still kind of feels off, and Verso's reading the letter, and then you see that pulse, right? And it's like, oh my dear God, I've seen this. It felt very, almost like Avengers Infinity War, to be quite honest with you, but it's like, okay, something's coming. They all get freaking destroyed, and it's like, oh my, just like they did with Gustav, it's like, again, the risk that you take by doing that, to then, by the way, jump to an epilogue, which then goes backwards, and then you go into Act 3. Like, it's unreal. It's unreal, the kind of mind tricks that this game plays on you. But of course, you get to the ending. And now, what I want to do really quickly, so I did the Mael ending, okay? I don't know how to feel. I keep going back and forth, and I think that is one of the most beautiful things that this game honestly has done. The ending is so freaking deep. And again, I want to start here because I think this will kind of, spider web into all of the other stuff I want to talk about. How gray everything is again, kind of crazy, where you can make such a good argument, I feel like, for either of them. But I really feel, upon like just reflection in these last 24 hours, I really feel like it's almost a lose-lose no matter what, okay? Because the Mael ending, I think initially is framed as the bad ending, right? Because when you walk into that theater and everybody's there and Gustav's there and Ciel's husband is there and all that jazz, and Verso walks out, it's like there is just this feeling in the air where something is wrong. And something is wrong. This is a man who begged you 20 seconds earlier, right? Please stop painting me. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. Let me go. Let me go. And I mean, that really broke my heart. That was actually one of the most impactful scenes, I feel like, in video game history. The Mael one, I actually don't know if it's as impactful, right? If you play as Mael and you beat Verso, him begging for his life, I guess begging to literally not continue his life, is so freaking powerful, and you get it. This is not even really Verso, right? Which is another huge freaking twist. And I think the way that they drop these tidbits of info of like what's really going on, what is this even conflict in this canvas, right? Where you realize, oh my dear God, the paintress isn't even really, the villain. Now, they're all kind of villains in their own way, but again, I guess it's actually how you interpret it and how you view them, because, she just wants to, solve her grieving problem, right? She wants to make her family immortal, and it's actually her husband that's the one taking everybody out. As you see in the beginning, when he wipes out the expedition, that was an incredible just like little tidbit where you almost want to replay it, and you almost want to say, oh, okay, I get it, right? But it's like, he's the one who's like eliminating slowly over time. She's doing all she can to kind of keep things intact, but it's not working. But at the same time, you could argue his villain level, but you can also kind of understand it from his perspective as well, right? Like, he wants his family. He wants to believe they're going to be okay, and he just wants to freaking pull them out, right? It's a trap being stuck in the canvas for so long, and that part I get. And that's the part that, even though I picked Mael at the end, I thought, you know what? That part of it, I don't know if I necessarily agree with, because Mael is lying. She knows she wants to stay there forever. She's going to stay there forever. It's going to kill her. Now, on the other side of things, at the very end of the game, and even future, like thinking in the lore after the game ends, he's not going to let Mael stay there. So he's going to come back and pull her out by killing her. So I guess killing her in the canvas, right? So there's all these freaking levels, to this game where, she's lying, and she's really lying to herself, right? She has that grief that she can't get through. She was never happy in the real world, right? She's scarred. She had, an eye is gone, the voice is gone, the skin is gone, and she doesn't want to do it. And I understand that as well. I think what actually makes it almost such a masterpiece is that you can understand where each character and each level of decision making is coming from, right? Like, I understand why Mael wants to stay there, but at the same time, you think about grief and you think, well, you're really masking it, you're really hiding it, which is what her mom was doing, and that was wrong, and that's probably wrong as well. However, you think from her perspective, okay, well, if she leaves the painting and she goes back into the real world, well, she's unhappy. She's always been unhappy, and she always will be. Verso's side is like, okay, I get it. Number one, he's not even Verso. Number two, he just wants this kind of cycle to end. He's seen so many people lose their lives, and depending on if you view them as people or not, I do, myself personally, I guess it depends kind of on him, but he's seen so much loss. He's seen so much, perseverance that's just been like slaughtered, right? But he doesn't want to keep going. And then he thinks about it from the family and says, okay, you can't solve your grief problem by staying inside the painting, so we need to get you out. And the only way of doing that is to end this entire thing, paint something else. But he's also assuming that their grief is going to end. And that's also kind of this, ambiguous thing. You don't know that, right? And it's like, that's why it's almost a lose-lose no matter what. He's kind of looking out for the family. He's also doing it in a selfish way because he himself wants to be done. And he's just assuming that Maëlle is going to be able to get over it when she leaves the painting. That's no guarantee. On the, vice versa, when Maëlle is inside the painting, that's not a real way to process grief. But then you also have to think about it that she's trying to protect everybody else. Now, she's also coming at it from a very selfish angle, right? She's really doing it for herself, at least in my belief. But part of the reason is she sees these people as real people, as really they are. And you kind of learn about that through some of like the exploration, of this game. They're incredibly real. That's kind of like that magic power of painting, that these individuals, these very gifted individuals, are able to basically make life, that they might not really see as life. It depends on the person, right? But they kind of are. So Maëlle is doing it in a selfish way, but she's also kind of saving that world. And then Verso, doesn't really care about that world, wants that to end, because also, like, how much do you value that world, and wants to kind of solve Maëlle's problem. And it's like, you get every angle. You get their dad's angle. You get their mom's. The mom very much is similar to Maëlle, right, in terms of just being, like, struck by that grief. So it's so unbelievably good. But, that ending is, like, it's very tense because it's like, Verso seems very uncomfortable with, because he's kind of, like, playing a part now, in a play. And you can see at literally the very end, Maëlle is literally losing herself to the painting already. Now, there's clearly been some sort of time jump, so you don't really know, how long this entire situation has been. But, like, that's not an ideal one. And then, the other one definitely played a little bit more somber, her waving goodbye to everybody, right? But, at the same time, is she going to actually get over? Or, I say get over. I don't mean to diminish it, right? Really, it's get through. Can she get through the grief? She lost her brother, and she also lost a huge part of herself, but also, like, everybody blames her. Really, like, half of her family blames her, and that's not okay. That's not even necessarily, in fact, that's not at all. It's not on her. So I just love that the game, specifically at the end, and really, then you kind of go backwards and you think throughout the entire thing, it just puts you in these incredibly gray areas where, as I said earlier, like, you kind of get everybody's part. You understand why everybody is doing everything. It can even be traced back to, like, Verso. A lot of it really could have been avoided if he didn't lie so much. Verso is a huge liar. Really not a liar, more like he withholds information until the time is right? And he does that so often. He let Gustav die, right? To really for a future plan, to make sure that Maëlle was going to go along with what he wanted, kind of as the end goal of saving their mom. And, like, a lot of those things he's withholding. He's withholding to make sure that things go not even necessarily like the way he wants it, but at least the way he hopes, that it'll go. So, everybody's kind of got this dark side and this evil. Evil. I don't like. I'm almost, when I say it, I want to say, don't call him that, right? Because it's like it's more deep than that. And I think that's just such a freaking amazing part of this game. But those kind of bombs, even just kind of learning on the fly, right? Because like there's kind of those moments where you realize, like, okay. Like, because, and I'd also, by the way, I don't want to say, like, okay, they're not real, because, like, in a sense, they definitely are. Depends on the character, how they view them as real or not, and I guess also depends on us, but I almost feel it's very meta, and that's actually kind of why I agreed with Maëlle from that angle, to, like, keep them alive, because if you just think about it from, like, well, they're game characters, like, to us, right? Literally to us, they are not real, but they kind of are. It's actually, in my opinion, it's the exact same thing as what the game's lore is doing, right? It's these painters that are painting these beings into existence, and they might not even necessarily see them as real, but they have their own lore, they have their own lives, they have their own civilization, like it is a real thing. Okay, pull it back one more step. We are players, gamers. We have a controller in our hand. These are characters created by a team, right? They're put out there, but they have lives, they have lore, they are their own individual things, and we're playing as them, right? We're watching them interact and do things, and it's like, isn't that the same? So wouldn't you not want to save them? But then there's that extra level where it's like, well, there's 2 levels to the individuals in this game, and then you kind of have to like figure out where you stand. So I mean, it's such a big part of it, but it's kind of like, I don't know, like, what do you value? Do you see life in these people or do you not? But I love it. I really think it has the elements that I love about a game, where it's like, it's got the complexity. I mean, really, that's a big part. I always talk about like Kingdom Hearts and Alan Wake, and really, Final Fantasy is a big one. Like, really, I would say, okay, going to Rebirth, and I don't want to really spoil necessarily Rebirth for those that haven't played it, but there's a similar feel, definitely, like I said, like days and weeks and months after, like, still thinking about it. But what I find interesting, and I think it gets me with all of these deep games, Alan Wake, Kingdom Hearts, things like that, is like, they'll get you on just like a moment-to-moment basis, right? There'll be some incredible freaking cutscene, or there'll be just a really big like heart-to-heart moment, or there'll be like a jaw-dropping reveal, right? Something that is very easily to almost isolate, and they all have that, right? You can think about a certain character in Rebirth, you can think about elements in these other games, but then also, once those are done, they kind of have that lingering feel where you still think about it. Not just those moments. Those moments definitely, that's true as well. But you think about like the entire package, and you start thinking about the themes. You start thinking about kind of the little moments, right? There's little things in here as well, like some of the stories. And I actually found that Expedition 60, I believe, that figured it all out. Like, they literally were they were like the greatest team out there, right? They figured it out. They had no armor. They had nothing. And they figured it out. And then they started to swim back to tell everybody that basically their life is a lie, and they got taken out before they were able to swim back. So like small stuff like that, right? Verso's past life, like he hooked up with several of the expeditions, and he got close, I believe, to one individual girl. They got into a relationship, and I think he had to actually kill her because she figured out kind of his immortality. So it's like this thing is like insane. I mean, there's so much depth that enhances what's already good, and that's kind of the point, right? Again, like the big moments, the things that are almost viral, and the things that kind of everybody can pinpoint, those are incredible, and those need to be incredible really for any game to kind of nail it. But then to have that complexity and that depth, that's what this game has. You can go into any of these characters. You can go into any of the situations that are playing out. It's unreal. It really is unreal. So let me know what you guys think about any of these elements. I'll be doing many more videos on Expedition 33 as the days continue and as I finally have beaten the game. Make sure, as always, you're subscribed, bell icon turned on, and I hope to see you all on the next one.